What's up, chat? What's up, everybody? Come on in here, y'all. Come on in here. Come on in, chat. Come on in. I was trying to wait to the end of 5150, but them niggas are going hella late. And I gotta talk about this. What's up, Brooke? 5150 was going hella late. I was like, yeah, I can't wait no more. Fat Joe. I read that report. The BET Awards were canceled. The Hip Hop Awards. The Soul Train Awards and the BET Hip Hop Awards have been suspended. I don't want to say canceled. Let me be factually correct. Suspended, meaning the shows will, as far as they're concerned, they will come back in the future. But what they're saying, I said, man, Dr. Short's cooking. Yeah, that was a good show to Dr. Short. What they're saying is it will come back as far as what they think. But right now they got to suspend the show. So what we going to do is we're going to break down why they got to suspend it. Yeah, check out my show earlier with Dr. Short. Dr. Short was going in as always. As always, he was going in. What's up, humans? So, let's talk about it. In a surprise announcement, BET said it's suspending the Soul Train Awards and the BET Awards. I understood that I knew the Soul Train Awards were broadcast on BET, but I didn't know that they took over control of the Soul Train Awards. But it makes sense because I was on my research early before I came because I was on I knew I'd be on my phone doing this one, so I wouldn't have my computer available to me while we're live. So I was doing some research before I came live, and I saw that BET owned. They bought the Soul Train Awards outright and got full control of the Soul Train Awards back in 2016. Back in 2016. Back in 2016. Remember that. Because, the Soul Train Awards started in 1989 is what I was researching. And, but that was the first one, they said. But then I remember there was no Soul. I remember the Soul Train Awards. The Soul Train Awards, as we know of, really came about after, as you got into the 90s. And I always respected the Soul Train Awards more than I respected the BET Awards. But the BET Awards and the Soul Train Awards are in direct competition. And BET is going to choose home before it chooses the road team. And the BET Awards and the BET Awards are still very much a part of BET's plans. The BET Awards are still around. So when people understand that we still they still had a BET Awards, and the BET Awards did a better job this past year. They cleaned the BET Awards up pretty good, and even though it still was stupid on some of the awards that they gave out, Glorilla winning the Gospel Award. What's up, Manosphere? What's up, Sonya T? I ain't seen Sonya T up in the chat in a minute. Is it me? Or you ain't been around, Sonya T? What's up, Sonya T? But I also don't be checking the chat room that much. Especially if I'm on my computer, y'all could be all up in that motherfucker. I won't be when I get into a train of thought. I don't be paying attention to the chat, so that could easily be my fault. No, I never really cared about. I never really cared too much about the hip hop. I watched some of the hip hop honor stuff, but not really. But oh, you say you have two accounts? Okay. But I was looking, and we're gonna I'm gonna show y'all this. I was doing some research earlier on ChatGPT, looking up the ratings for the BET Awards. And black folks, I gotta say this. We have done an amazing job with our boycott and protest of Fat Joe being the host of the BET Awards. Y'all remember when Fat Joe was capping last year, saying that earlier this year, saying he's gonna pass off the BET Awards? I went and printed out this sheet about 10 minutes ago. I know it won't be gonna be on my computer, so I wanted to make sure I have the numbers in front of me. I printed out a sheet of the ratings, and all you gotta do is go to ChatGPT and ask. Type in each year that you want the ratings for the BET Awards. Okay. Every year they don't post. They didn't post. There's not Nielsen ratings for every single year. But look at the chart. Y'all see this chart? Y'all see that dive from where it started to where it ended with Fat Joe? These last 3 years is Fat Joe. And this is pre-Fat Joe. The Fat Joe curse, as the Star Report coins it. I gotta give credit where credit is due. The Star Report. Hey, this is Star. I hope Star talks about this on his next show, because he's the one that came up with the Fat Joe curse. So you gotta give credit where credit is due. Salute to the Star Report. I got that fat Joe curse from him. But we all saw it. I got the term from him, but we all saw it in real time. You saw Fat Joe and all the boxers that he come out with, they lose. The Yankees had a 5-0 lead. But you know why the Yankees lost that 5-0 lead to the Dodgers? It's because Fat Joe started out the game with, "I'm on the way out." All off beat and shit. So the hip hop board, they say they're not canceled, they're suspended. Their official word is they have to figure out how to rework it. See, this is where the agenda, this is where we fought, black folks. We fought against the agenda, and the agenda ended up killing it, dying on itself. So look, there's no data for 2011, but in 2012, when Mike Epps hosted, 3 million viewers. When Snoop was hosting, you had 2.8 million viewers. No ratings for the first year DJ Khaled hosted. The second year, 1.49. The following year, 1.5 when Luke hosted. And then we get to Fat Joe in 2022. These are the ratings that I put up. We get to Fat Joe. It went from 3 million viewers when Mike Epps, when the culture, it was well over 2 million viewers when Mike Epps and Snoop hosted. Mind you, when DJ Khaled hosted, it was a simulcast, BET and MTV. When Snoop hosted, it was just BET. Over 2 million viewers. It was 1.5 million with BET plus MTV. So DJ Khaled came in and still kept it above 1 million viewers, but they needed 2 networks to cross 1 million viewers. So you see right there is where they fucked up. The minute they left the culture, ratings dropped. They left the culture, in 2016 with DJ Khaled. And that was their first time under 2 million viewers. BET, do you see where you went wrong with the Hip Hop Awards, right? When you leave the culture, the real culture, they're getting a lesson in what it means to an NBA, you next. The NBA, you're next. But even when they brought Luke back, you still have over 1 million viewers. When they got to Fat Joe in 2022, 700,000 viewers. Fat Joe in 2023, 600,000 viewers. Fat Joe 2024, just over 300,000 viewers. These motherfuckers were fat member, because black folks, we started calling for Fat Joe's head during when he was hosting 2022. We was on our consciousness stuff, but we weren't, we weren't outright calling for it because it was his first year doing it. He just kind of popped up on us, like, and then when it popped up, it was like, why the fuck is Fat Joe doing this? So in 2023, we was like, hey, y'all, man, nah. And BET said, fuck you. We're going to put him in your face again. And they got 100,000 less viewers. 2024, Fat Joe, BET tried to force Fat Joe down our neck. Look at these numbers. Read the numbers. This is in constant. Look, these are the numbers under Fat Joe. 708,000 viewers, 600 some odd thousand viewers. I'm reading backwards. Down to 333,000 views. They tripled down on disrespecting the culture, trying to shoehorn in this Fat Joe character, and they paid for it dearly. What's up, Scotty Jenkins out on that road? What's up, chat room? Tanya Marie, what's up? You see? They thought that they was being slick. Look, this is what happened. They thought that they were going to tell us what we like. This is how you know we're in different times right now. This is how you know. This is how you know we live in different times. Because we don't need a generation to get retribution. We don't need multiple decades and the skunk that not come. See, in the old days, you had to wait till a book was written, a memoir was written 10, 20 years later, or a special report on 2020 a decade later to find out that you were effective. We're in different times right now, homie. They're trying to force. I think we can officially say the Fat Joe experiment has failed. Although, Night Boomer, you a fool. You a fool. We can officially say that the Fat Joe thing has failed. Nobody really cares about his podcast. See, the podcast just started, Scotty. Scotty, the podcast just started a few months ago. Let's see where it's at in a year. Fat Joe, Busta Rhymes, until they apologize to Black America and humble themselves, they will be examples. They will be made examples of. What does Seeley say? Until you do right by me. Until you do right and apologize. Because black people don't owe anybody anything but an ass whooping. So until you do right and apologize, and look at what's happening with the corporations. Do you see how much money they're willing to lose to not have us around? 2016 was when the BET Awards made its departure, the BET Hip Hop Awards. That was the year the Hip Hop Awards made its departure from foundational Black American, Native Black American, Negro culture. And it took an immediate hit. An immediate hit. The only reason why DJ Khaled had over 1 million viewers is because they brought in MTV. And it was broadcast on multiple channels. And it still was coming off the momentum of the previous years that the Hip Hop Awards were authentic. Look at what happened when they moved and exited from the culture. And then not only did they exit the culture, they ratcheted the culture. It was the Hip Hop Awards and the Soul Train Awards is just ratchet. The last time the Soul Train Awards was any good were the years Tisha and Tashina hosted, and also the years Erykah Badu hosted. After that, yeah, nah. Nah. Think about what the BET Award, think about what they did with hip hop. They didn't have Fat Joe one time, they had him 3 times. There are a lot of great rappers that we want to see that I'm sure would do, because when you're dealing with a great MC, an MC is an MC. If you can rock a stage with a mic, you could rock hosting the show. I mean, I would love to have seen LL Cool J. Too Short. Ice Cube. You know? Ludacris. I think Ludacris would be an excellent host. Person number 1, if you think Ludacris would be a great host. I don't even like T.I.'s music, but I think T.I. would be a great host. I don't even like T.I.'s music, but I know T.I. would be a great host. And he does comedy now too. Like with T.I. doing comedy, he's really commanding the stage on another level. T.I. would be a great host. Queen Latifah. Queen Latifah's funny as fuck. She's an amazing MC. She has great stage and she's funny. Stage presence. We can't have Queen Latifah host the BET Awards? Hip Hop Awards? I mean, they done skipped over it. If Shock G was alive that first year Fat Joe did it, Shock G would have been a great host. I mean, we can go down the line. Hell, Boosie would be a great. I can't stand Boosie in his interviews with Vlad TV. I think that shit's corny and it's trash. But Boosie would still be a great host. MC Light would be great. Bootsy Collins would be good. I'm just talking about like the Hip Hop Awards, you know? But Bootsy would be a good host for the Hip Hop Awards, considering Bootsy done took his bass lines over and over and over and over and over again. You said T.I. been with Jane Elliott? I ain't seen nothing with T.I. and Jane Elliott. That sucks. Yeah, MC Hammer would be a great host. Stanley. MC Hammer would be, E40 would be a good host. Big Daddy Kane. Black Thought. That's a good one. Go. Black Thought would be amazing. I mean, we can go down the list. You could have this year. It could be the West Coast. You could have multiple hosts. You could have a West Coast night. Hip hop is hosting the awards this year. Next year, you can have an ensemble of cats from the South. The following year, you can have an ensemble of cats from New York and Philly. Kendrick Lamar would be a great host, yeah. But see, you see how we haven't even touched. We're forgetting so many people right now. Master P, 50 Cent. I think Nelly would be a great host. Common, yes, Common would be amazing. He would be an amazing host. Common, I already said Q. Big Boy, yep. Big Boy and Dre. I'm sure 3 Stacks will come back and host. If asked, if you pay him. I'm sure if you pay 3 Stacks, you can have 3 Stacks and Big Boy hosted. Yeah, Method Man would be a great host. Nas would be a good host. Nick Cannon would be a good host. I mean, Big Gip would be a great host. That's a good one. Big Gip would be a great host, I think. Redman, hell yeah. Method and Red hosting, co-hosting. Lupe Fiasco might turn too serious on a motherfucker if he hosting, but he'll still be better than Fat Joe. I mean, like, think about. See, that's what happens when you don't do right by yourself, by your own people, by your own house. Yeah, I'd be a great host, nigga. I'd kill Fat Joe hosting that shit. Bow Wow, even though Bow Wow is corny, he'd be 15,000 times better than Fat Joe. Yeah, Scruncho would be a good host. Yep. Kuran said hard no on Lupe. Yeah, that's why I was kind of like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about Lupe. But Lupe would still be better than Fat Joe. I do know that. Shit. Nigga, I think goddamn Cardinal Official would be a better host than Fat Joe. You niggas probably don't even remember who Cardinal Official was. That nigga sucked. But he'd still be a better host than Fat Joe. Nigga, my nigga Yuck Mouth will be a better host than Fat Joe. I got 5 on it. Yeah, we need comedians, because hip hop is comedy. Yeah, have Martin, you got a Wayans Brothers host. Yeah, Carter Official was dookie, but he still be better than Fat Joe. I think Fab Five Freddy's still out there. Yeah. Yeah, 85 South. Yeah, put what's his name up there? I'm drawing a blank. Y'all know 85 South show. Salute to Chico Bean. I love Chico Bean. Hey, Corey Holcomb would be an amazing host. Scarface, Bill Bellamy. Yeah, all these names. Bill Bellamy, Cat Williams. Although Cat Williams might be too expensive for them. Y'all can afford Cat Williams. If they want to bring it back right, yeah, have Cat Williams host it. Yeah, DC Young Fly. That's what I was thinking about. DC Young Fly. Yeah, Cat Williams be an investment. But I'm going really long with this for a reason. I'm just showing how many people there are out there, if they really cared about the culture, if they really cared about hip hop, how many people from within hip hop would host it. And here's the reason why I bring that up. You're not going to get somebody, Beyonce's never going to host the Country Music Awards, no matter how many Grammys she wins, no matter how many tickets she sells. Beyonce's not going to host the Country Music Awards. You're not going to get, Pharrell is not going to host the Latin Grammys. They wouldn't even let somebody on the level of Cat Williams host the Latin Grammys. You put out the big guns in black society, they would never host the Latin Grammys. And how is it that the Latinos get their own Grammy Award, separate from the mainstream Grammys? How is it that black people invented all of the music, including salsa, including bossa nova, including Afro-Cuban, including Latin jazz? That was all created by black Americans. Even though we have a major ownership stake in Latin music, would you ever see a black American host the Latin Grammys? See, Fat Joe participated in the culture. We have ownership of Latin music. Latin music uses our instruments, not African instruments. They use some African instruments, but Daddy Yankee and Pitbull, they use drum set. That's a black American instrument. They play bebop horn riffs. They play big band arrangements. They're literally, black America is a major ingredient in the sauce of Latin music. Let me give you an example for those of us who make sauce. You make barbecue sauce, right? Well, let's just say I made my barbecue sauce out of a tomato base, right? I'm gonna give Latins the tomato base because it's still your twist. It's still your thing. But the black American sound is the molasses, it's the brown sugar, it's the mustard, the salt, it's the Worcestershire sauce, it's the pepper, It's all of the seasoning. The tomato base is the home music. That's the tomato. That's the base. I'll give them the base. But the flavor of all of that, of all of salsa, the flavor. Somebody said, "Stay on, I'm on point." I am on point. Keep listening. God damn it. The flavor, the salt, the pepper, all of the seed, what makes the barbecue sauce the flavor that it is, are the Black American ingredients. Although the tomato base is whatever region it comes from. The tomato base of reggae is Jamaican, but the molasses, the mustard seed, everything that gives it its flavor is Black American. Not African. I mean directly Black American. Directly. You're right, girl. Speak. Celia Cruz admitted it. Tito Puente said it. And we won't get acknowledged at the Latin Grammys, let alone an opportunity to host. You won't see no Black cameramen. You won't see any Black writers. You won't see any Black directors, producers, talent, A&R, talent manager. Black Americans won't even get a chance to perform, nigga. Think about that. One of the best Latin albums of the last 2 decades was an album, I'm drawing a blank of it right now. God damn it, but it's by Roy Hargrove. That's me leaving. I'm actually checking my Spotify to give you the name of the album. Hold on. It's called Habana by Roy Hargrove. It's one of the best Latin albums you want to hear. Rest in peace, Roy Hargrove. But it's called Habana. Go listen to it. Thank you, mods. Y'all on y'all tone. Y'all on your point. Y'all on point. Appreciate that, human. Yeah, become a Patreon member. But look, if you want some good what's up, Ian Glover? Salute to you. But Habana by Roy Hargrove, that didn't get acknowledged at the Latin Grammys. See, this is why they don't want us to understand our culture and define ourselves, because once we get a clear enough definition of what we bring to the table, of what we offer, not Africa, what we offer off what we created and what we do, the minute we notice that, what's the next step? You're going to start taking stock. You're going to go back and look through your bank account and add up the receipts, right? Once you understand what it is, you don't have to be told to do these things. It's going to be that's the natural next step. It's like, put it like this. Let me give you an example. This is the reason why I talk about the instruments that we created so much with y'all. Hey, Brooke, are you still in here? Brooke's on the East Coast, so she might be knocked out. But the reason why are you still here? I appreciate like Brooke. She's put up videos that I've done before where I'm talking about the instruments and things like that. And I liked when you did that, Brooke, because I do that for that purpose. Because I don't do this. I'm not a hoarder of knowledge. What's up, John? Yeah, I tried to wait till 5150 was over with, but that shit was going way too late, so I had to go live. I tried to wait till 5150 was over with. But I put that out there because I want people like Brooke, what she did when she clipped up and she used the talking point about our instruments. I remember you did that about 2 years ago, Brooke, a while ago. And it encouraged me. It's like, okay, yeah, people are listening and paying attention. Because I'm not one of these full of ego ass niggas. You know? And the purpose is so we could take stock. When you say everything is Africa, you dismiss yourself. Let me give you an example. You know what's in your house, what's in your living room, what's in your bedroom, right? Whatever room, if you're in your home right now, look around. Pick out something in your room right now, whatever room you're in. Pick out something as you look around. You know, even if there are multiple versions of that thing, you know which one is yours, right? You know which one is yours. Let me give you even a better example. If it's something that you have in your home that your grandmama gave you, that your daddy, that came down from your grandmama, anything your grandmama gave you, would you not be able to recognize it in any room? Press number 1. Do you think if your grandmama or your mama gave you something, somebody who's passed along, somebody you love and cherish, if they passed you anything, whether it be a TV, anything, would you not recognize it? Just say someone stole it, or it ends up you misplaced it, and now you go visit a friend on the other side of town, on the other side of the country, on the other side of the world. Would you be able to not tell that's yours? Think about it. What if I take it a step further and say that thing that's in your room that your grandmama gave you, it's a one of a kind. It didn't exist. And it only exists through your family. Your family created it. Would you be able to tell if you see it somewhere else? So let's take that to music. And I've been to thousands of concerts. When you go to a concert, you see the band behind the performer, right? You go to see Latin music. You see the instruments that they have versus if you go to a symphony out of Europe, you see the instruments that they have. Versus if you go to the African drum circle, you see the instruments they have. And then you go to an R&B concert and you see the instruments that they have. Well, what got me to noticing is the drum set, the bass guitar, the lead guitar, plug-in amp, the keyboard. These are all indigenous instruments to the United States of America. The turntables. These are all indigenous to the United States. Okay, keyboard plays a little bit of everything. Let's take that out. Let's just go to the drum set. What's up, Kenneth Berry? When I go to a Latin concert, I see timbales and I see hand drums. The only drums with sticks are timbales. When I go to the Africans, I see hand drums. 7 drummers, 8 drummers, 20 drummers playing hand drums. There may be one drum with a stick, and it's a curved stick. It's a funny looking stick. Looks nothing like the Black American drumstick. I go to the Japanese concert. I see these huge, tall drums with a gong, a cymbal. But when I come to the United States of America, I see just one person playing drums, and they're on the drum set. And this drum set sounds distinctly different than those African hand drums, than those timbales, than those timpanis in an orchestra, than those Chinese and Japanese drums, than those gong cymbals. This drum set, not only does it sound different, it has a different role in the music. And then I see, okay, this is Black American. And now when I go back to the Latin concert, they now got our drums. When I went to the first Jamaican concert, it was steel drums and hand drums and timbales. When I go back to the Jamaican concert, they have a drum set. What's going on here? When I go back to Africa, they Fela Kuti, Wizkid, they have a drum set. But hold on, the drum set's mine. My granddaddy made that. My granddaddy made that drum set for my music. How is it what my granddaddy created, how is it now in y'all shit? And y'all disrespect us the way y'all do. What's going on here? Like, we share, I'm cool. But the way y'all treat us like we ain't shit. But you're using my granddaddy's instrument. Think about that. Think about it like that. You hate me, but you're using my granddaddy's instruments for your music. But you'll never give me an opportunity to host your award show. You'll never give me an opportunity to direct your award show. You'll never even allow me to win an award. You definitely won't let me play. Now do you see why it's so important that we know what we created? Because when we go and turn on TV and we see these bands playing, we take it for granted. We think everybody did this shit. We think everybody uses a bass guitar in their music. We think everyone uses an electric guitar. And if you really pay attention with your ear and you listen to a banjo and you listen to an electric guitar, you're listening to 2 completely different instruments. Yes, they share a common bond of plucking of strings being plucked. But what kind of strings? What are those strings made out of? What kind of wood is being used? All these play a difference in the pitch and the sound, and every instrument is intentional. The electric guitar with distortion in the amp can't do what the banjo can do. The banjo, if you need something purely played like a banjo, you can't do it with a distorted amp electric guitar. The same way if you needed a strong heavy metal riff, you can't do it with a natural banjo that's not plugged into an amp. Right, humans, they're both quarterphones, but they're not the same. They're different. You got the steel guitar that the Louisiana and the Mississippi and deep down South brothers play. But also, the brothers in Hawaii have a steel guitar. J-Mo gives a lesson in my documentary on that, Playing It Flat. The function of an electric guitar plugged into an amp is completely different than the function of a banjo. They don't have the same function. It'll be like, that's like saying, okay, here's a square and here's a triangle. You saying, well, they both shapes that added to 360 degrees. Yeah, but try plugging that square into that triangle's hole. It won't fit. They're both the same. They kind of made up of similar components. They both equal 360 degrees. They're the same, right? No, they're different. Completely different. Yes, Indians had plucking instruments. Do you know the native, the black, the American Indians? That's what's up, Brooke. But like, yeah, they're completely different. You know the American Indian, the Black American. You know what our plucking instrument was? The diddly bow. The diddly bow didn't come from Africa. You know what the diddly bow was? I explained it in my documentary. It was whatever wood stick or 2x4 you can get. You tie a brick to the bottom and you get a piece of chicken wire or a piece of hay wire, usually hay wire. You get a piece of hay wire and you tie the bottom of that hay, you wrap that hay wire around that brick, get it real tight, tie it into a can at the top along a string, and you pluck that string, the diddly bow. The blues comes from the diddly bow, not the banjo. And to go on Brooks' point about the 2/4, what's up, JB Furious? You know, to go in on Brooks' point about the 2/4. We Black Americans are very weird. We're different. Our music is weird. By definition, our music is weird. Why is Black American music weird? Black American music is weird because it's a deviation from the norm. That's what weird is. Weird just basically is a deviation from the norm. The norm around the world is a 1-3 downbeat or quarter note, all four downbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. That's why when you see people, white people, and even non-white people, non-black people, even Africans, when they're fresh over here to America, they always clap off beat. They're not off beat. They're on beat for their music. We, when Caucasians come around, they just, it's not that they're off beat. They're on beat. That's why whether you see a Caucasian, someone from India, somebody from Africa, naturally, they're not going to catch the beat. The Caribbean, yeah. The world shares a 1-3 downbeat. The Black American is the deviation. We play the backbeat, the 2 and the 4. That's our natural rhythm. The 2 and the 4 is only indigenous to the United States of America. Not even Central America, not even Mexico. Not South America. Brazilian music was on a 1 and a 3. Music out of the Central America region, 1 and a 3. We're the only, that's why I said we Black Americans are weird. But the thing is, it's right in our face, and so we don't see it. Like, our uniqueness is special. I didn't say better. I don't shit on other cultures unless I feel like cracking jokes. Now, when I crack jokes, you just gotta take it. Because part of my culture is talking shit. So I don't apologize. If I've ever cracked a joke on your culture, it wasn't personal. It's just because I felt like making myself laugh. No more, no less. It's never personal with me. If I crack jokes on you in the chat room, it's not personal. I just felt you said something that I felt was stupid, and I felt like making myself laugh. I'm very selfish in that way. If I feel like making myself laugh, I'll do it. I think I damn near cost myself a friendship recently, making myself laugh. Somebody I was around somebody and they were saying some ridiculous shit. And I didn't mean to be an asshole, but I had to ask a very silly question. And I think that really offended them. And they're mad at me right now they're mad at me. And there's other reasons, but it all started when I said some shit just because I felt like making myself laugh. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean no harm. But I'm never going to apologize for being an asshole in that way either. I am. Gotta make myself laugh. So if I've ever offended your culture, trust me, it's not personal. I just had to make myself laugh. But somebody said bossa nova. Like I said before, bossa nova was born in the United States of America. It wasn't born in Brazil. Bossa nova was that shit comes out of Brazilian music meets bebop. That was bebop. Yeah, you're right, Hurt. Some people can't take a joke, but just trust me. If you're ever around me and you just dominating the guy, people who talk a lot, I get quiet around people who talk a lot. I do. I don't. You're never going to see me out talk somebody who talks a lot. If somebody's around just talking and they got to dominate the conversation, I'm going to fall back every time. It's not that important to me. But if you keep talking, at some point, I got to make myself laugh. At some point, I'm going to say something that's going to make me laugh. But back to what we're talking about. The 2 and the 4 is indigenous. One thing that really got me more and more and more on my Native Black American and indigenous American Indian kick, on top of the information, was the music. You gotta listen to nature talk to you, and we'll get back to the BET Awards. But music is our interpretation of nature when done right. And every corner of the planet has its own sound and its own frequency. So whether you're in San Diego or New York, the Black American frequency is it's gonna be the same. It's this unique American thing that only comes from Black Americans, whether they are from Philadelphia or Texas, whether they're from Seattle or Miami. We're gonna all be on one accord with the 2 and the 4. I had to ask myself, why is it our music is the music that's dominant? As hard as they've tried to suppress it. Because it's not as if America has not gone through all extents, all kinds of efforts to suppress our music. From throwing Elvis out there, to stealing country music, to making rock and roll, making the Beatles and the Rolling Stones as if they weren't just knockoffs of chess records. There's an ongoing effort to hide us, and for some reason, these people that so-called hate us, whether it be the European, the Latino, the African, they sit their cultural norms down and adapt to ours. You gotta ask yourself why. This isn't reading FBI stats. This isn't saying, why can't we just get along? This isn't saying none of that dumb shit. This is just taking a step back to observe nature. Why is it murder almost doesn't exist in areas where Black people have resources? You got to ask yourself questions. Why is it? How did these people know how to grow cotton and tobacco? How is it Benjamin Banneker, a Black man, created the Farmer's Almanac and saved America from starvation in the late 1700s? How is it George Washington Carver created the field of bioengineering and using the resources in the land to make products, plastics, stuff like that? How is it these people understand the land like that? They must have a connection to the soil. Why is it of all the groups that come to America, why is it the sound that's indigenous to these people, the Negroes of America, why is the sound of the Negro in America the dominant sound in spite of the world's best propaganda mill doing everything they could to suppress it? Do you know that they stopped allowing jazz to be taught in school in New Orleans in the early 1900s? They basically tried to make it to where New Orleans did everything it could 100 years ago to outlaw jazz. And in spite of that, we still get cats like Christian Scott today. We still get Tank and the Bangers. These are questions that we gotta ask. Why is it the music of these people, in spite of its suppression, why is it every culture that does everything they can to not employ us, to not be around us, why do they sit whatever cultural norms, how they talk, their vernacular? Why do they pick up our vernacular? They don't pick up white America's vernacular. Do you see people come to America and speak like hillbillies? Chat room. Name the group that's migrated to America and they picked up the vernacular of a hillbilly. Because if it's just about poverty, it's a lot of poor white people. Going back to that point Miles Davis made on that show I did yesterday about Miles Davis and about what Chris Rock said. If it's just about poverty, it's a lot of poor white people in this country. Why ain't they cool? Well, I'll say this. Ratchet culture is poor white culture. We picked that up from them. We did. We didn't. There was no ratchet culture in America in the 1980s. There was some subcultures that was ghetto as fuck, but it was frowned upon and shamed. Even in the 90s, we used to call ratchets Eastie. Remember that? Here in LA, we would call ratchets Eastie. So we call them crunchy. We call them wamps. We call them tramps. Ratchets were a punchline in the 90s. They were there, but it was like, ugh, get away from me, you crusty. Ratchets were not to be discussed. The ratchet culture became the face of black culture through media, through Nicki Minaj. Let's go. It always go back to the music. Let's push Nicki. The world just in 1998 showed us that we want more Lauryn Hills, and since we Black Americans, we got plenty of more Lauryn Hills out there, but they never got a shot. We showed you through Lauryn Hill we wanted more of that, but you gave us Nicki Minaj. You gave us Lil Wayne. It was through Lil Wayne and Nicki Minaj that ratchet culture became the norm. Even gangster culture wasn't ratchet culture. Although gangster, it started with gangster, and then it went to the trap, and then from the trap to the ratchet. Happened on TV. I'm not forgetting Sexy Red. Sexy Red's now. Sexy Red is 15 years later. We're talking about how it started. And didn't happen on TV. You start seeing the Medeas, the Lee Daniels, the angry black woman, the submissive black man. In the late 90s, there was a movie called Baps. And Baps was making fun of ratchets. Just the fact that Black America protested Baps. And Baps wasn't supporting ratchet behavior. Baps was making fun of ratchet behavior. But Black America made sure that movie didn't do well because we didn't want the shit on TV at all. Whether you're making fun of it or not, this shit's trash. Get it out of here. Black Americans didn't even give Baps a chance. But when the Lil Wayne, Nicki Minaj generation came into the music, and then the TV shows started getting more ratchet, and then what happened around the Lil Wayne, Nicki Minaj time? Now you're getting shows like Empire, Taraji P. Henson movies. Taraji P. Henson, that's why when she was crying about not getting paid, on one hand, I was like, that's fucked up. On the other hand, and I ain't got no issues with Taraji P. Henson, but on the other hand, you normalize ratchet on TV. Like the housewife shows, but Taraji P. Henson movies outside of Hidden Figures. I was glad she did that, because I like Taraji P. Henson. But facts is facts. They put her out there to be Queen Ratchet. And so you got that. You got that dynamic going on. And then Ratchet in around the 2010s started really kind of coming on strong. Of course, white culture is like you got the Kardashians. The Kardashians started the. I remember Ratchet. The century of Ratchet started out with the Kardashians. It didn't start with Black Americans. That's why I said that. That's us amalgamating to their culture. They made the Kardashians famous, not us. When you're dealing with that ratchet, open slut walk, it started with the Kardashians. Paris Hilton, yeah. What's up, Marvin? That's where the ratchet shit starts. Then we start acting like Britney Spears and Paris Hilton, and the goddamn Nicole Richie, yeah, and the Kardashians. But of course, it was black men that put that ratchet. It was black men stepping outside of our women, putting on the ratchet Kardashians. That's why black men we gotta check ourselves too. That's why we can't always point at women. It was the black man that put on the ratchet Kardashians, and then we started get at the time in 2010. That's why I don't want to put this completely on tethers, because Lil Wayne's not a tether. He's Black American through and through. But he brought in that real male ratchet, good for nothing, lean drinking ass acceptance. You know, he's not a tether. We got to take that on the chin. But then Nicki Minaj is, but we weren't on that back then. We were just everybody's black back then. We were just everybody's black back then, you know? And you get Nicki Minaj, you get Amber Rose taking the shit to another level. And they took it to another level. That's right, Nadi. But do y'all see how it works? Lil Kim, yep. And it's the ratchet thing slowly came in at the same time of you can't call things gay anymore. You can't say the F word. 2005, cats were saying faggot like every third word, and it was just normal. You get that in a regular TV show. 2009, that shit was done. And it really got driven home 2010, 11. Kobe Bryant was playing against the Dallas Mavericks. Referee Bennett Salvatore it was a bad call. I forgot what it was, a bad call. Kobe walks to the bench, he hits the seat, and he said, "Benny, you fucking faggot." And the NBA suspended Kobe. And the NBA made an example out of Kobe. And the rest of that season, Kobe didn't get no foul calls. That was the year that the Lakers got swept by the Dallas Mavericks in the playoffs. But this particular thing happened like in the February game. But Kobe was mad. He said, "Benny, you fucking faggot." And Kobe did not get a call the rest of that season. And then a couple years later in 2014, Mark Jackson's blackballed from the NBA, is my opinion. I don't know for a fact because I have no facts. It's my opinion. But I was still very close to the NBA when Mark Jackson got blackballed, and I heard stories from multiple people, from people I know who actually coach in the NBA, and at least a half a dozen different players. What I heard was when Mark Jackson, no, he said some stuff about gay people at his church, and that's the part that they've kind of put out there. But basically, Mark Jackson was just like, man, I ain't with none of that faggot shit. And it was said in a different way, but that was like basically the tone of it. And basically, what happened was, the GM of the Warriors at the time was a gay guy, and they let him go, and they made an example out of him. And to make it even worse, what the white supremacists do, they play the long game. They hired him to be a TV announcer so he could sit there in front and made sure and told him, you better not mention yourself getting fired, nigga. So he had to sit there and watch his team win championships in front of him, in front of the whole world. They paid him, but that was to humiliate him. But Mark Jackson has too much dignity to be humiliated. And then they ended up firing him last year for no fucking reason. But they're paying for it. Viewership is down because everyone was complaining about this past NBA Finals and Doris Burke and the job that they're doing. The NBA Finals sucked this year because they fired Mark Jackson. But again, going back to the BET Awards and the Soul Train Awards, when they got away from the soil, the viewings are no longer loyal. You dig? Look at this. The BET Awards, going back to the BET Awards, ratings are down from damn near 4 million viewers when Mike Epps was hosting The Soil to 300,000 viewers with Fat Joe, not The Soil, hosting. Let's go to the NBA. NBA ratings are down 50% in the last 10 years. A lot of that's LeBron's fault because he brought in that soft shit. He put all the competition on the same team. So a lot of that is his fault, but it ain't just his fault. It's David Stern's fault for allowing it, and Adam Silver. Oh damn, some shit landed on my head. It's not just their fault. It's also the NBA investing in Africa and Europe and bringing in those players that aren't as good, not as skilled. Yeah, they came at Tim Hardaway for saying that too, yep. They brought in these Euros and these Africans that can hit three-pointers but can't hit a drop step. That would be annoying me. Nigga, man, I wish I could sit my phone down and do some basketball moves. I was watching a game. Man, it was somebody. It was, who was that African dude? DeAndre Ayton, the African, in the post. I was watching the game last season. The defender had the arm bar, but his bar's in the middle of his back. You know when you posting up and you lean back and you lean back when you see someone catch the ball in the post and they lean back, what you're doing, remember Michael Jordan used to lean back? The reason why you do that is because you want to see where the pressure from the defender's arm is. So if you feel wherever their arm is, you know what area you can go. If you feel something strong in your right side, but not much pressure in your left side, that's when you know the drop step. If you feel even pressure, that's when you back down. If you feel pressure over here, that's when you might go for a fadeaway. So when you feel that pressure and you see that there's no one on that side, that's when, like, as a ball player, you drop. That's what you call drop step. I feel like I'm back in the Coach Dewan mode. Drop step, when you get there, look at my Crocs. You get that and you drop. That's a drop step. You saw the Crocs? You do that and you drop. But when you drop your step, you got to lower your shoulder. Because if you keep your shoulder high, they're going to be able to recover on defense and get you back off. But if you drop your shoulder and they recover, what it's going to do is when you drop your foot, your step, and your shoulder at the same time, you're going to be able to spin around them and you're going to have free open baseline every single time. And I'm watching DeAndre Ayton in the post. The defender's elbow's right here. He has his whole right side open to where he could drop step, and the nigga couldn't do it. And I'm like, what the fuck? Same thing. Giannis Antetokounmpo finally got a drop step this last offseason. No skill. But they can hit them three-pointers, though. But that happens when, because what they're doing is they're manufacturing players in Europe, in Africa. My homeboy Rashid, I keep saying I want to get him on here, but he's always in Africa. And he can't really, he's in Africa, literally over. My boy Rashid used to coach for the Lakers. One of the best, he used to train Kobe. He was part of the training of Andrew Bynum. He's one of the last coaches he was taught the triangle offense. He was the last person that was taught the triangle by Tex Winter directly. Where is he? He's in Africa developing talent. Of course he would be here if the money was here, but that's where the money was. He's in Africa, and Africa's getting what our black kids in America can't. And here in America, you're gonna be paying between, on the cheap end, $7,000 a year, between $7,000 to $20,000 a year per child to play AAU ball. If your child's gonna make every tournament, you're gonna be paying between $7,000 to $20,000 a year per child. Who can afford that with $5 gas and $2,500 a month rent for a one-bedroom? So basketball is becoming a rich man's game in America, and they're getting free access to our greatest coaches in Africa. But the NBA, with all that being said, their ratings are down 50%. That's what they're getting out of it. Yes, they got a mega TV deal. Yes, they did. And part of it is because NBC thinks that they can save it with the marketing they're going to do. And I think the NBA on NBC will be a better product than the NBA on ABC. ABC totally killed it with their fantasy bullshit. MLB is now, yeah. This is a chance for us to know our power. To see it. We as black Americans came together and said, Fat Joe, we're tired of you. You disrespected us. We're not fucking with you. Therefore, we're not fucking with the BET Awards. And the BET Awards only had 300,000 views. Basically, to put that in a context, more people watched an episode of 5150 than the BET Hip Hop Awards. Think about that. More people tuned in to an episode of 5150 than the BET Hip Hop Awards. And BET Hip Hop Awards cost all the millions of dollars. Making sure. I gotta check my corners, you dig? I gotta check my corners. BET Awards spent all the millions of dollars flying in all those rappers, paid for that big ass stadium, paid all that money out to get the views of a regular week of 5150. to get the views of Candace Owens. Candace Owens gets more people than her live. Think about that. They tripled down on Fat Joe. We told them he surprised us in 22. He was like, what the fuck are he doing? And the show kind of sucked. So you get less views in 2023. We said we're not fucking with this dude. But you only had a drop off of 100,000, so you figured you roll the dice again and go with Fat Joe again. And you went from 700,000 views the first time he was on to 300,000 views the last time he was on. Now your ass got to cancel that shit. But you had damn near 4 million views when Mike Epps hosted. Ding, 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 ding. The NBA was not struggling for ratings when they allow Black Americans to just go. But what do y'all do right now? Y'all giving Jokic MVPs, Giannis. Think about this. Chris Paul should be at least a 3-time MVP. Think about, we have Chris Paul in the NBA right now. Chris Paul is, in my opinion, the 3rd greatest point guard of all time now, behind Magic, number 1, Isaiah Thomas, number 2, and Chris Paul, number 3. As far as being a point guard. Steph Curry is a hybrid. And if you don't understand the difference, you're not on the level to talk to me about basketball, if you don't understand the difference between a hybrid and a pure point guard. But I'm going to put Magic, Isaiah, Chris Paul, Oscar Robertson. Here's why I say Chris Paul. I'm going to put Chris Paul ahead of... The only reason why I'll put Jason Kidd ahead of Chris Paul is defense. Defense is the only reason why I would put Jason Kidd ahead of Chris Paul. Defense. Chris Paul, Jason Kidd's one of the greatest defenders, and so is Gary Payton. And I've always put Gary Payton and Jason Kidd on the same level, about the same level. But no, Chris Paul. Chris Paul made Blake Griffin look like he was really a hooper. That's number 1. He made the Clippers relevant. Made Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan look like, for real, made them motherfuckers multiple All-Stars. And go to Chris Paul's season in Oklahoma. This is when I push Chris Paul ahead of everybody. Chris Paul's season in Oklahoma. Y'all remember Westbrook had left and the Thunder weren't supposed to make it? He took that team to the goddamn playoffs. The Thunder. With nobody. Chris Paul, wherever he goes, he wins. His biggest problem has been his body fails him. His body, he just been very unlucky. Someone like Kevin Johnson. Kevin Johnson could have been one of the greats. But Kevin Johnson's body, whenever it got to that point of Kevin Johnson being just great, his body let him down. Same with Chris Paul. Chris Paul has a condition in his knee that is is a degenerative condition. It's like something, no matter how he works out, the situation with his knee, it's just, and when your knee is bad, that fucks up the other muscles. So although you may not directly have a knee injury, you'll have a groin injury, you'll have a hamstring injury, you'll have something like that, you know? He's just had bad luck. Nope, John Stockton's out of my top 5. He used to be in my top 5, no longer. Not with Chris Paul up there, nope. And when I put Chris Paul ahead of Jason Kidd, look, We're talking about a hair. There's only a hair of a difference. But Chris Paul, what he does, but Chris Paul's a good defender too. That's the reason why I would put, it's just Jason Kidd is bigger than Chris Paul. That's different. That's the only reason why I'll put him ahead of, only reason why I'll put Jason Kidd ahead of Chris Paul, I would take him because Jason Kidd's 6'5". He can guard a point guard and a shooting guard and a small forward. Chris Paul is just as good of a defender as Jason Kidd, but he can only guard a point guard. He's too short. Jason Kidd was bigger, so he can guard multiple positions. Iverson is the second great. I gotta put Steph Curry ahead of Iverson. I had Iverson as my greatest hybrid of all time, but I gotta put Steph ahead of him. That's true. Andre Bryant, Jason Kidd is a defensive smaller power forwards. Yeah. So for that reason, whoever said Jason Kidd, thank you for that, because I was kind of tripping on Jason Kidd. But Jason Kidd could defend multiple positions, and he's taller. So for physical reasons, I'd take Jason Kidd for physical reasons over Chris Paul. That was you, American Freeman. Salute to you. Physical reasons, they're equally on the court. They're equal, but physically, Jason Kidd was bigger, so I mean he could do more, a little bit more because of his size. But Russell Westbrook, Russell Westbrook has everything on paper, but Russell Westbrook is stupid on the court. Never learned tempo, never learned pace, never learned rhythm. And that's another thing about a point guard. A point guard is like a drummer on a point guard is like a drummer on a basketball court in music. You gotta set the rhythm. You gotta set the pace. Jason Kidd knew how to run you when it was time to run, but when you were on the run, Jason Kidd knew how to come down and slow the tempo down. Let's slow down. Let's get a good shot. Same with Chris Paul. And the thing when it comes to a point guard, the mental means far more than the physical. I'll take Mike Conley Jr. over Russell Westbrook all day as a point guard. Mike Conley just never was on the right team at the right time. If you had the Mike Conley of 10 years ago on this current Minnesota team, the Timberwolves probably would have won the championship. If you had 2013 Mike Conley on this team, but he's just old now. Mike Conley's just old. But I take Mike Conley Jr. over Westbrook 10 out of 10 times. Because I don't need an athletic point guard. I need a point guard that understands pace and tempo. Pace and tempo. Pace and tempo. Relax. That's what my point guard got to give me. I would never put Russell Westbrook anywhere on my team. I think he's great. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. But if I'm picking a team, I would never pick Westbrook. Westbrook wouldn't be on my team. At best, he'd be a change of pace 6-man on my team. Or not even 6-man, 7th man. You know how it is, you get that one point guard to come in and they're only going to play about 7 minutes a night, 7 to 12 minutes a night, but you bring them in to change pace. That's what Westbrook will be on my team. And he's too great to insult him with that position, so I just wouldn't have him on my team. Now, Westbrook didn't shoot good enough to be a shooting guard. That's why he couldn't move back to shooting guard. Westbrook never picked up the set shot. His shot comes off the bounce, not set. Westbrook never improved for the set shot. For whatever reasons, I don't know why. Because he used to be, but when his 4th season hit, I thought he was getting to be a pretty good shooter. For some reason, his shooting leveled off like around his 5th season. He never got better. Westbrook he'd have had to be a better catch and shoot player to be a 2. You can't be a 2 and not catch and shoot. Yeah. Yeah, at best, that's right, Andre. At best, if I had Westbrook, you'd be 12 minutes a night, come off the bench, change your pace, get some stops, get a couple steals, change the momentum. Then once you change the momentum, I'm taking you out, and I'm bringing Chris Paul, I'm bringing Mike Conley Jr., I'm bringing my real point guard in to pace the game right. But 2000, let's go back to the Oklahoma City Thunder years and the James Harden years. Those years, basketball was dominated by us. And instead of giving Chris Paul the MVP in 2019, when he took that sorry-ass Thunder team to the playoffs, they gave it to Giannis Antetokounmpo. I thought that second MVP that Giannis got in Defensive Player of the Year, I thought that should have gone to Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis, the year the Lakers won that bullshit-ass, bubble-ass, fake-ass championship, Anthony Davis was the best defender in the NBA that year. And I thought he was the best player in the NBA. LeBron had the stats, some stats, the stats that they chose to show you. But Anthony Davis was playing both sides of the ball, and I thought that he was clearly, okay, if he's not going to win MVP, he should at least win Defensive Player of the Year. And they gave that shit to Giannis because they're pushing this immigrant agenda. Jokic, if you notice, they never talk about his lack of defense, and they're trying to sell us on his stats. That's the rules make it to where the stats are. The freedom of motion movement rule, the rules change is the reason why you see these assist numbers now so inflated. It's the rules. Shaq could have averaged 17 assists a game if he wanted to. Hell yeah, CP3 being. That's why I stopped taking basketball serious. When CP3 being blocked, that proved to me that wrestling was just a WWF. When CP3 was blocked, that was all about Kobe not winning his 6th championship. They gotta keep selling. Look, they're going to forever sell the Michael Jordan myth that he's the GOAT. Michael Jordan's not the GOAT. There is no fucking GOAT. Let's start off by saying that. Nobody's the GOAT. But if we're going to go there, there's a reason why they never put Kareem Abdul-Jabbar stats next to Michael Jordan, because you wouldn't be able to sell the Michael Jordan myth. The whole GOAT debate is, like I said before, I got to tell y'all again, the GOAT debate is a Nike argument. Let me say it one more time. The GOAT debate is a Nike argument. Michael Jordan, LeBron James. Whether you agree or disagree, Nike wins. If you're a third rail person like me, and I'll come in and say Kobe, if you're going to say Jordan or LeBron, what about Kobe? Guess what? Nike wins. That's all the GOAT debate is. It sells shoes. It's not real. Because if Michael Jordan was really the GOAT, you'd be able to mention Isaiah Thomas. But you can't make Isaiah Thomas as part of the argument. Why? Because if you look at Isaiah, he beat Jordan's ass 3 times. And then if you think about it, and people are like, well, Jordan's team wasn't ready. It wasn't good enough. Isaiah had a better team. Okay, let's go with that. Can we not say that Jordan only beat the Lakers in '91 because he had the better team? Magic had AIDS and James Worthy got hurt. Kareem wasn't there no more. Jordan had the better team. And Jordan had a better team than the Portland Trailblazers. Clyde Drexler, but Clyde Drexler didn't, Horace Grant was better than Cliff Robinson, Bill Cartwright was better than Kevin Duckworth. Scottie Pippen was better than Jerome Kersey. Craig Hodges was better than Terry Porter at that time. Jordan had the better team too. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? Name the team that had better players than the Chicago Bulls the 6 years that Jordan won. And then they omit Jordan getting his ass beat by the 95 Orlando Magic. They say, oh, Jordan was rusty. No, Jordan didn't have Dennis Rodman or Horace Grant. That's why. Jordan lost to the 95 Orlando Magic because the Magic had Horace Grant, not Chicago. Had Chicago had Horace Grant and not the Magic, Chicago probably would have won. Had the next year when Chicago got Dennis Rodman and Shaq was hurt, they beat the Orlando Magic. But you can damn well say that's because Dennis Rodman was there. Team was better. Jordan lost to the Orlando Magic because the Orlando Magic had the better team. And Jordan had the better coach each time. Now we go to Kobe. Not the same argument. The 2000 Portland Trailblazers were a better team than the 2000 Lakers. That 2000 Trailblazers was like the start of these 7, 8 deep, 12, 10 deep rosters. That was the first team that really had 2 starting lineups. Damon Stoudemire starting. Greg Anthony coming off the bench for him. Scottie Pippen starting. Steve Smith. Niggas had Steve Smith. Niggas, they don't even know how fucking great Steve Smith was. Steve Smith and niggas had, the Trailblazers had Rasheed Wallace and Brian Grant and Arvydas Sabonis and Jermaine O'Neal and Chris Mullin. Like, damn. As far as roster goes, the Portland 2000 Trailblazers was the greatest roster to not win a championship, top to bottom. Now, Ross Strickland wasn't on that team. He got traded away. Strickland was on in 98 and 99. When the 2000 year came, I think he got traded to the Wizards. No, it wasn't Isaiah Ryder. It was Bonzi Wells. They had Bonzi Wells. And Bonzi Wells was killing. The 2001 San Antonio Spurs were a better team than the Lakers. That was still mostly the team that won the 99 championship. You had Tim Duncan and David Robinson. The 2002 Sacramento Kings. They were a deeper team than the 2002 Lakers. What's up? What's up, doggy? The 2002 Kings were a deeper team than the 2002 Lakers. Every year during that three-peat, the Lakers faced a team that had more depth than them and compatible stars. Never forget how great Chris Webber was. You're right. That Portland team did have Derek Anderson. When you look at Kobe's second championship run, the 2008 San Antonio Spurs were a better team than the 2008 Los Angeles Lakers. I think that was actually one of Tim Duncan's best teams. You still had prime Tony Parker, who was just coming off a Finals MVP. You still had prime Ginobili, prime Duncan. This when they were also in their prime. You had Antonio McDyess coming off the bench. I mean, that team was deep as fuck in 2008. But the 2008 Lakers beat them. They lost to the Celtics in the finals. But that 2008 Spurs team was much better than the Lakers. Yeah, the Lakers had Pau Gasol, but Tim Duncan owned Pau Gasol. This is prime Tim Duncan. So who the fuck is Pau Gasol next to Tim Duncan? Nobody. The Lakers are better than every team they beat in the 2009 playoffs. The Denver Nuggets were, I think, equally as good. But 2010, the Boston Celtics were better than the Lakers. At least 4 out of the 5 Kobe championship teams, Kobe beat a roster that was better than the roster that he had. 4 out of 5 championships. And if I include the years that they didn't win the championship, when they beat the Spurs in 2004, the year they lost to the Pistons, the Spurs had an equally as good team. Yeah, 2010 was fun. I was at most of them games in person. First, second, third, and fourth round. I was at every round of that playoff series in person. Not every game, but at least a game around. Oh, yeah, 09 Houston probably was. Maybe. Shaq would not have won without Kobe. The Lakers had a better team in 1998 than they had in 2000. When the Lakers won 2000, that's because that's when Kobe came into his own. He got a coach that let him play, unlike Dale Harris. In 1998, the Lakers had the second greatest Laker point guard of all time is Nick Van Exel. Jerry West is more of a combo guard. But the Lakers had Nick Van Exel, Eddie Jones, Kobe Bryant, and Shaq. And got fucking swept in the second round. So I don't want to hear anything about Shaq carrying Kobe. Prime Shaq got swept in the second round with 4 All-Stars. Stop it. Stop it. 95 Orlando Magic, that's another one of the greatest teams to not win a championship. That was he had Horace Grant as power forward. People forget how great Horace Grant was. Horace Grant. That team, that starting lineup was hitting in all 5 positions. They had top players in all 5 positions. And they still had Donald Royal coming off the bench. Brian Shaw coming off the bench. Man, don't fuck with me with basketball, man. My memory is impeccable. I remember the niggas coming off the bench when it comes to basketball. Shaq had Horace Grant at the 4, 3-time champion, 4-time champion Horace Grant. Dennis Scott was one of the best shooters in the game at that time. This nigga Dennis Scott at the 3, he was a bucket. Dennis Scott at the 3 was a bucket. And Dennis Scott was one of those 3-point shooters that could put the ball on the ground. People forget 90s basketball, a lot of your 3-point shooters like McElvain and Tim Legler and those guys, they couldn't put the ball on the floor. They could shoot if they was open, but if you close out on them hard, they dribble that shit out their ankle. Dennis Scott was a newer style of shooter that could also put the ball on the floor. Nick Anderson was a slasher that could also shoot well. In the 90s, you had niggas that could slash like Kendall Gill and dunk on your motherfucking ass, but they weren't the best shooters. Slashers in the 90s, in 90s ball, slashers weren't good shooters and shooters weren't good slashers. That, you didn't start seeing both until the 2000s, really mid-2000s. The 2000s when you saw shooting players being able to do both equally as good. But in the 90s, most players could slash and not shoot, shoot and not slash. Nick Anderson was one of the ones that could do both equally as well. And then you had the 1 year of Penny Hardaway's prime before the injury started fucking him off. You had prime Penny with no injuries. You had Donald Royal coming off the bench. You had Brian Shaw as a backup point guard. And you got swept, Shaq. Stop all this whole Kobe-ass Shaq. Roll Shaq's coattails. No, Shaq got swept way too many times for you to say that. Don't play with me. But back to our topic. Yeah, Desmond Mason was a slasher who couldn't shoot at all, right? Like, Eddie Jones was a slasher, but his jump shot was just not consistent. Eddie Jones was streaky, but he didn't get to that cup. Anybody says Kobe was a carbon copy, I'm either going to you just repeat stuff that you heard before. You weren't paying attention. Anybody who paid attention to Kobe's game saw that, yeah, 96, 97, 98, Kobe was doing a lot of shit like Mike. 2002, 2001, Kobe had passed that shit and was doing his own shit. That was stuff that Michael was not doing. Michael was not breaking ankles like Kobe. No, he wasn't. Michael was not going left like Kobe. No, he wasn't. Michael didn't have Kobe's reverse pivot. No, he didn't. Mike wasn't shooting as far out as Kobe was. No, he wasn't. They even operated in different positions on the parts of the floor on the triangle. Because when you ran the triangle was, the Lakers ran the inside triangle through Shaq. When the Bulls ran the triangle, they ran the sideline triangle through Jordan. The Bulls ran the triangle through Jordan in the post position. The Lakers ran the triangle with either Shaq or Pau Gasol in the post. Shaq would be in the low post, Pau Gasol would be in the pinch post, and Kobe would operate in the triangle face up. So even the way they ran the triangle were completely different. But you got to understand basketball to know this. But if you don't understand basketball, you just repeat cliches like, Kobe was just doing what Jordan was doing. Okay, you win. You win. They weren't even operating from the same side of the court. They were doing completely different things. What Kobe did, what Jordan did was completely different. Yeah, Sonya, I'm going to get off basketball. Yeah, but Kobe took way tougher shots than Jordan. Jordan took much easier shots than Kobe did. Their games are completely different. But you got to understand the game. But I'm going to get off basketball. You're right, Biz Martin. Eddie Jones is not nearly, he's not just, J.R. Smith will run circles around Eddie Jones. That's why J.R. Smith played like 17 years and Eddie played like 10. But back to the music. See, I talk about basketball, Sonya in the chat. I talk about basketball and music interchangeably because they both abide by the same rules. Music and sports abide by the same set of laws and rules. They're communal. You know? Music is communal. Sports is communal, especially basketball. You know? And the reason why the Black American, the game is beautiful and the ratings are up when we're playing it is because basketball is like jazz. Football is more like classical, more structured. You know what route the receiver is going to run. The line know which direction it's going to block. The quarterback know the routes. Football is classical. It's orchestrated. Everything is done to precise measure. That's football. It's classical. It's very European. But when I talk about European, we got to remember the Moors still created classical music. Remember that. But now I would say NFL is more like American classical. It's probably more American because it still has a little bit of a jazz. The improvisation comes when you get the ball. The ball is like the solo in a classical music. Basketball is more like jazz. It's organized chaos. It's structured, but it's not. Basketball, you run your sets. The reason why the triangle offense was so successful and dominant was because it wasn't rigid. It wasn't rigid in its play structure. The triangle offense required you to read the situation in live time and make adjustments. So let's say we're running pinch posts. Pinch post is when you would see Kobe come up or Brian Shaw come up and Pau Gasol will be at the top of the key. Throw it in to Pau Gasol, the pinch post. Then based on the read, whoever threw it into the pinch post is either going to run to the left or to the right, depending on what angle the defender is shading them. And the person Pau Gasol was really good at, what he would do, he would hold the ball up high. And then when Derek Fisher or Kobe, whoever threw it into him, they were smoked through, and he would turn around in the pinch post, and depending on what the defense did, he might dump it down to Derek Fisher for a layup, or Derek Fisher might set a screen for Kobe to pop out to get the ball to the mid post, or they might throw down to Kobe, and then Lamar Odom's going to slip to the short corner, and from the short corner, if they're playing defense, you're going to either have the lob to Andrew Bynum, the kick out to Derek Fisher for the three. If none of that works, throw it back out to Kobe and reset the offense. And music is similar in jazz. In jazz, you have a direction. You know what chords, you know the parts, you know the sections of the song. But how you play it depends on the feeling, the mood of the night. And like Miles Davis said, I don't rehearse. You rehearse on stage. The mood of the night is going to determine the movement of how you play. And you got to be in the moment and totally present. Because although we're going to play these 9 songs tonight, the structure on how we play these songs is sort of set in place, but it's not set in stone. And the movement of the offense, the movement of the music depends on the mood of the night. And that's basketball. And that's why we excel at it. That's why it's interesting. That's why you don't have to point to stats. You can just watch a beautiful game. You take us out of basketball, now you get Kenny G style jazz, where every note, everything played is predetermined. And it'll sound good for a while, but at some point it's going to get monotonous and boring. And that's what's happening right now in basketball. That's what's happening with the BET Awards. You bring in somebody from outside the culture, it gets monotonous and boring. And here's the test. This is the test. DeJuan, you're being racist. DeJuan, shouldn't everybody get a chance? Okay, fine. With Fat Joe coming over, if his culture cared that much about getting a fair shot, why didn't they tune in? NBA wants to go global and bring in all these Africans and Europeans, okay. There are a lot of Africans in America, there are a lot of Europeans in America. Why are ratings down? Baseball did the same thing. Y'all brought in all these Latinos to replace Ken Griffey, to replace Barry Bonds, and the Chinese and Japanese to replace, Fred McGriff and Frank Thomas and Gary Sheffield. And at the same time, America is gentrifying America, and these same groups are now they're here in America in larger numbers. A lot of Indians here, a lot of Chinese here, a lot of Japanese, a lot of Latinos. America is there are tens of millions of more brown people in America now than it was in the 80s. Why aren't the ratings reflecting that? Think about it. Probably 50 or 60 million more Latinos in America now than it was in 1988. All right, cool. Way more Latinos in baseball now than it was in 1988. Cool. Well, why the fuck is ratings down? Shouldn't ratings be up? if the formula worked. Think about it. BET. America's brown now, right? The tanning of America. We're all in this together. You gave Fat Joe 3 years. And all he's done was make it worse and worse and worse. If it's about diversity, where are these diverse crowds? Do you know where the diverse cars are? They're celebrating their culture as they should. Because hip-hop is Black American culture. This isn't their culture. That's why they're not showing up. Because they're doing whatever is the normative behavior of their culture, as they should be. They're not racist for not tuning in because Fat Joe's there. They have a culture that they enjoy, and they're enjoying time in that culture. They're not going to come over to hip-hop because hip-hop isn't their culture. And you can't force them to come to hip-hop. No matter how much propaganda you put out, you cannot force them to come over to hip-hop. And they won't come over to hip-hop because they're too busy immersed in their culture. And that's why baseball is never going to have the views soccer has. The people that you're trying to appeal to get into baseball, they love soccer. They watch baseball. But you know what's happening? If you still have Black people in baseball, I'll give you a secret. They'd still watch baseball. As a matter of fact, they might even watch baseball more. Like basketball. Every race in America got something to say about basketball, don't they? Every race in America got something to say about basketball and football. Basketball and football still got the sauce. Although they're diluting that sauce season by season. This isn't us putting a gun to anybody's head, forcing them to like us and watch us. This is their free will, their free choice. The same reason why it's their free will, their free choice to abandon their native instruments and their music and pick up ours. It's right there in front of our face. We just got to pay attention to see it. All right, I'm about to get it. I'm in here 2 hours, nigga. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm about to get the fuck up out of here. I have a history of jazz class coming up in September. September, we're going to start a class. End of September, into October. I'm going to do a 4-part class on jazz. All right. Get ready for that. We out.